Welcome to the Yoga Better podcast. My name is Andrew Dugas, the mobile collection of bones here in Houston, Texas. Here on the Yoga Better podcast, we talk about everything of interest that goes into practicing yoga, thinking about yoga, running studios and businesses, having relationships, and developing what it means to be a human being here on planet Earth. Today's episode recorded in 2022 with the amazingly high energy, ridiculously generous, brilliant Stephen Kaufman here in Houston, Texas. He is a serial entrepreneur, one of the most dichotomous people you will ever meet. In person, his mind so humble, but driven, creative, and in his businesses, a champion, willing to do what it takes to create and sustain and grow, who is also a family man. Stephen Kaufman is truly one of my favorite people on the planet. His mind, the things that he chooses to devote his life to, truly inspiring. We're proud to call him a friend. We're proud to call him a graduate of the Yoga Better teacher training. Wide-ranging conversation from identity to business to time management to growth to family to a little bit of his history. Fantastic conversation. I know you will enjoy it. Let's get to it. Welcome to Hey Andrea. It's where we talk to Andrea.
It didn't quite sound like a blue jay, but it had that unfortunate sound of. I love these. Look, Andrew, look how the stems are so green.
Yeah.
That's pretty. My mind wants them to be brown. So nice that they're green. Oh, there he is. There he goes.
Oh, yeah.
It's him. Bye-bye.
Looks like a blue jay.
Whew. I love the light, little spots of lights. Dagny, this is definitely you. This is definitely your terrain here. You look as alive as I've ever seen you, I think. I wonder what these are. Don't you wonder? And how neat is it? Like, what are these? Oh, you know what I bet these are? These are plumerias. The frangipangies. Look up. Less up. This is so good. Bark, bark, bark. What does the tree say?
Are you going to go down there? Oh yeah, we are going to.
You can if you want.
You should. You can walk across that tree.
Look at that! Look how cool! Oh my gosh! Oh my god! We should take a picture together. 3, 2, 1. Cheese!
Oregon.
Oregon! Dad, your face is the same every picture. Please be careful.
How are you?
Good. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's okay. You can do your work.
No, I'm going to sit over here with you guys.
Oh, you're gonna hang out with us?
Give you a hug
Nice
too
to
while
see
I'm
you.
at it.
Nice to
So
see
good
you.
to see you. Everything's going all right?
Everything's well. Like I just told Andrew, everything that's going on with me is. If I have any problem, it's my own fault.
It's not a problem. It's a car you drove up in.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool car. So I grew up poor, as you guys know. My father, he was from the silent generation, so he never complained ever, no matter what. He just never said anything. But I could always see, he never was envious of people, but he always envied people in Cadillacs. I could just see it in his face. And so when I was old enough to buy a car like that, I bought it for him. He could never drive it because he wasn't physically able, but he rode in it, which gave him a lot of joy and gave me joy. And I found that car from the original owner, the family of the original woman who bought it. And she only, like you think, you hear these stories about these old cars kept in the garage or the barn. She kept it in her barn, and she only drove it to church on Sunday. true church and back. I have the original purchase order where she ordered it with no vinyl top.
Wow.
Because those crack, if you remember from
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
when you were a
yeah.
kid,
For sure.
and no passenger mirror, so that she could easily back it up in the barn. Which is, you can't even have a car made without a passenger mirror today.
That's right.
So anyway, it's cool. It's fun. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
If you hear my lisp, keep it. I like it.
We'll put it on the list of things to keep.
Oh, wow. Nice. The word lisp has an S in it, which is also not cool. And my main company is called Zeus, which has a Z and an S in it, which is not cool. But I've learned to love it a long time ago.
You practice conversation all the time, I suspect.
I mean, I try to make as many things conversational as possible, including marketing, actually. It's because I think it's much more relatable.
Yeah.
And kind of keeps the edge off. I'm already an intense dude, so being conversational helps me relax.
Your middle name is Mr. Intensity. When I was telling people I was going to interview you, it's like, because some people didn't recognize your name. I was like, all right, Sleeves, Intense. Ah, yes, Stephen.
Yeah, it's just a self-defense mechanism, you know. It's
Yeah,
not.
of course,
It's
yeah.
not real.
That's right. You're a teddy. We all know you're a teddy bear. I have a lot of stuff we could talk about. One of the things that sort of occurred to me actually walking back from the restroom, because that's
Okay.
when you get
right. This is where I come to mind.
That's
Okay.
right.
All right.
I was thinking about you.
When you were washing your hands.
That's right. Yes.
And how clean I am.
That's right. For sure. Yeah. You smell great all the time.
Thanks.
I saw it was a waste video on YouTube, but it just happened. I think it was like a play next video after something. I just didn't stop it from autoplaying. And the first minute was actually worth my attention. And it was a video, like a productivity video on the distinction between effectiveness and hard work, dispelling the myth of hard work. And he used two good examples that I thought were really great, that I then was able to sort of connect to my own life, but then it seemed to apply perfectly to you because you do both. You're very effective and you work hard. The rest of the video was working hard actually doesn't get you anywhere. It's effectiveness that gets you anywhere. So if Apple works for 20 years and slaves to make the next iPhone, but it sucks, nobody cares how hard they worked. They care that the phone works. And if you had an idea fully formed from the heavens, people still pay you for it if it improves their life and adds value to their life. And the other example he used was, then people get confused because they think, okay, if I'm in a factory floor and I press a button that does this big complicated thing out on the factory floor, I am effective. Except why don't I get paid the big bucks for pressing the button? I'm very effective at button pressing. Except he acknowledged that someone else did all the heavy lifting to make that button pressing effective. And as I was setting up the teacher training, I got, you could see this setup, right?
This is super cool.
I'm into super.
I've never seen anything this cool before for a podcast.
And it's on
and it's mobile.
It's on wheels.
Yeah,
so,
this is incredible.
And so what we do for the teacher training now is we live stream via Zoom and we record 2 cameras. And so I'm wearing 2 sound systems, one for the Zoom and then one lavalier for when we record so that we can give people the videos. And it is non-casual. Just the setup, just like getting power to everything and cables to everything. And I was thinking how my whole life, this kind of work would have turned my brain off. And I would have, if I had to lift just like half a finger a little bit more than necessary, I would have said, fuck that whole career. But now I do things like this all the time, but it's still monotonous, except it's, to me, I'm regularly impressed that my brain can handle this, except what it occurred to me is that I'm also the one who designed the system. So where everything is set up, the lights, I researched the light and installed the light, and then I do all the setup. Same thing here. I've solved the problem of good sound, which is one of the things that frustrated me about our last conversation at the Evening of Ideas. We hadn't live streamed for a year up until that point, so that was the thing we missed. The image was beautiful, but we didn't get good audio from the night. So there's a lot of really good stories that night, and no pressure to retell them, but sort of thinking about you very effective, but you're also, if there's a free minute, right, you're going to do something with it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of lineage and ideas. Like, where do you think that's from? How would you describe your trajectory with that?
Sometimes that I refer to that behavioral or personality trait as Dr. Squeeze, because I try to squeeze everything. I'm not alone in this. There's a behavioral profile where people try to squeeze everything in their calendar possible. And it's from some sort of behavioral trait that has me wanting to achieve things to gain confidence. It's probably parlayed into self-acceptance, but definitely it relates to self-confidence. And There are three basic behavioral profiles. There's an achiever, there's a socializer, and there's an analyzer. And everyone has all three of those traits, but everyone also has a propensity, or there's a phrase, regress to the mean. Everyone regresses to the mean of one of the three of those.
Right.
And I just happen to be born with, or some of the genesis of my identity to be the person I am today is that I need to achieve things, and so to get my self-confidence.
Yeah, I was thinking about your life story as much as I know. One, I don't know a lot, which it seems by design to some degree. Like you.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
So you don't, we don't sit around telling stories very often.
Right.
But it's not today.
Yeah.
But it is a good story. It's not who I am any longer, but it's part of the journey, of course. But it's not today. It's not now. And it's a good story.
You are in the present, but it's still curious to me. Like, if I knew you at 20 or at 12, would you be a squeezer?
Oh, great question. No one's ever asked me that before. Probably at 20, for sure, because we're most adults, most functioning human beings who don't have any sort of psychosis are who they are at 17 to 22 years old. And so for sure at 20, I was definitely Dr. Squeeze, trying to get in as much as possible. Back then we called it hustle. I was just hustling to try to figure out how I'm going to, make a living and provide for myself, go to school if I'm going to go to school, or work, or what's going to be the next big thing. At 12, no, because I was just figuring out, what is school, and who are people, and what are these things called girls, and everything else in life that you don't know when you're 12 years old.
Yeah. Thinking about your life, the good story I know, and that, it'd be fun to get some high quality audio of you telling your story.
Sure, I'll tell you.
But my parents grew up super poor, and they sort of overcorrected. We really weren't like super well off, but my dad, anything you wanted, he got it, kind of thing. We were raised by the TV, first generation raised by the TV. And that was an accomplishment for my parents, because my parents were want for everything when they were growing up. And so they basically produced a bunch of brats. And had they given us a little bit more poverty, we probably would have turned out a little more well adjusted. But just thinking, like, even in the worst environment, there's something that had you. I hope everybody can hear that. I'm sitting across a table from a bona fide doctor who you actually know what the fuck you're talking about, rather than just life experience. You've done some study, you've actually researched stuff, which is fun. There's always there's a seed that had you know that something was possible. And for me, one of the reasons I don't judge people who don't make it, who aren't pulling themselves up from the bootstraps by their own bootstraps, because what I know I've had in my life is I've had people tell me, like, sit down and have conversations with me at some point in my life, throughout my whole life, as early as I can remember, giving me some kind of perspective that something else was possible, that left me believing that I could do something different. And I can imagine a world where I didn't have those conversations. Obviously, most successful people some of their success is a pathology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But of all the people that I know that are successful that probably have some pathology in there, you're also one of the more interesting and fun, and you're self-aware. And it's like, and for you, it's anything that might be neurotic is also a part of the game. You play the game full out.
So 12 you weren't a squeezer, now you are. Was there a moment when you switched, or do you remember anything specific that happened that had you go from being non-squeezy?
No, nothing. No, there was no triggering event where I saw, okay, this is who I'm going to be now. But when there's those three big decisions, the genesis of identity that they talk about at Landmark and Warner, and who Warner really articulated that so well. Once you formulate your identity, you make a certain list of assessments about yourself, and then you act those out for the rest of your life. Mostly you act them out. You're going to act them out for the rest of your life. It's just, are you going to be aware of them or not?
Right.
And then are you going to have any sense of control over when they're happening or not? And most of the time, for most people, because of access or resources, and for bravery or courage, they go unexamined. And I just happen to know what they are for myself, but they still impact me because they're hardwired into me. But there was never a trick. I have had many, like most people, I've had events in my life, some more traumatic than others, but everyone experiences like that, the same three genesis, three decisions or three moments in their life when they're through childhood, through adolescence, that formulate who we are as adults. I don't remember any. I remember them, and I know them. I've done enough work on that, but I don't know. None of them said, "Okay, let me go get stuff done."
Yeah.
You know, I don't. That it didn't occur like that to me. It more occurred like survival. Like I have to just try to get as much done to survive. I love what you said about the overcorrecting, because that's such a real issue about people who grew up in poverty. If they become successful, is they don't turn off the overcorrection.
Right.
So then they go to the other side. They go way beyond, or there's nothing more ironic about someone who grew up poor and then now they won't spend any money at all. Like they're yearning for success, and then they, die with mattress money or a bunch of money underneath their, that they donate to their family. They never enjoyed it, or they never left any money to their children or anything like that while they were alive. The overcorrection is such a real issue. I'm not. This podcast is probably not designed to be talking about people who are successful who overcorrect, but it is interesting because a lot of people do it even who aren't like ultra successful.
For sure.
They do it. They're not thinking about what they're doing. They're just doing. They did something in their 20s and 30s, and then they get to their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they keep acting the same way. Mostly generated from decisions they made when they were a child, and they don't have to keep acting that way, but they don't pivot. The best book I've ever read about this. I've read it in the last 6 months, as a book called Die with Zero. And it's not about not giving any money to your children or to charity or to whatever is important to you. It's about thinking through the process of actually money and working and trading off time for money and having the best quality of life. It's a fascinating book.
I would describe all of the hippie experience as an overcorrection. It's the same thing.
Oh yeah, good point.
And so that was my life. My life was, I can't be my dad, who worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and martyred himself so we would have money, but I didn't get a dad. That was the story, the narrative that I told, and I couldn't have enunciated that in my 20s. But once I got it enunciated, I was like, oh shit, like,
yeah,
I'm just as trapped in not being my dad. And of course, that was just because I got a Nintendo when I grew up. I had a few things. So one of the things we know about you, because we met. Our first interaction was on bench press mechanics. And you were still, in the gym upstairs. At what point in your life did you get excited about powerlifting and then sort of the specialty of bench press?
Okay, so I have Crohn's, and I have it. I don't talk about it much, but I have it managed. But in the early 2000s, it was really out of control, and I have been one of the most non-compliant patients ever. Like the doctor says something, I do it for a couple days, and then I would stop doing it after I felt better or whatever. Or I thought I was the exception. Don't eat that. Oh, I can eat that. I'm fine. Until I wasn't fine. That kind of thing. It's like horrible patient.
Right.
And in 2008, it got really bad. Not because of the recession, which a lot of people link it to. It just happened to be the year it got bad, and I had to have something called a resection. An ileocolonic resection, where they go into you and take out parts to sew the good parts together and take out the bad part. And I was in the hospital for 7 days and bedridden for like 3 months and that kind of stuff. While I was there, I realized I wasn't really doing anything physical. So I'd lifted some weights in high school, the little high school I went, and a little bit of college, but not really. And I was just trying to build my company, and I wasn't doing anything physical. I wasn't doing anything fun. So I decided in the hospital, I'm going to do something physical. I've got to do something. So I started watching powerlifting videos. It just happened to come up on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then I happened to see this one guy who I was really fascinated by, who was bench pressing so much weight, and it was just amazing. And I went to his website to see more videos, and I noticed the phone number said 832 was the area code, which is obviously one of our area codes. So I called him in the hospital and said, do you do any training? And he said, who is this? And I said, I'm a potential client if you do any training. I met him, and the short version is he trained me for a year. And his name is Tiny Meeker. He trained me for a year, and that year I won a world championship. After that, because that's pretty good progress, somewhere in the year 2, he said, look, you don't have to pay me for training anymore. If you'll join my team, you help me train, I'll help you train, because he lifts a lot more weight than I do, and he needs a lot of people.
Right.
And over about an 8.5-year period of time, I had because of him and hard work, I had a great career. I had 4 world championships, 5 state records, a world record, and lifting everywhere from here to Russia.
Right.
And it's more about the accomplishment, trying to build confidence through achieving things, because that's a part of my behavioral profile.
The way I sort of categorize, I guess that's my behavioral profile. deconstruct and compartmentalize. You occur to me as what I am as a collector. Of you pursue stuff, but to me, you're not selling that you're doing this forever. It's this is what you're super excited about right now, and then okay, this year it's Ferrari. Squirrel.
Yeah.
I noticed my bank account suffered, but a lot of stress went out the window, and I just experienced way more happiness when I finally gave in to that, where it's like, okay, this is just what I do. I will fixate. I call them obsessions. Some people call them hobbies, but they don't occur as hobbies. This is what I do. And I can see a future where I won't do it, but that doesn't matter because this is what I'm doing right now. And so 8 years, and this is for fun, which is why it's so amazing. Okay, I got world records and state championships. And is your record still up for your weight class?
I never look, so I
Okay.
have plausible deniability. It might be.
Okay.
So you could be in front of a world record holder.
Hey,
I can't say I'm not.
Well, at some point I knew you when you were a record holder. Yeah, so I like it.
I never look on purpose. So as far as I know, I am.
Hey, man.
And that's all that matters, what I think.
So what had you sort of, that intensity dwindled, and then, so what was next after
It didn't
that?
dwindle. I was prepared to, in 2015, I set a world record. In late 2015, I was doing a leg workout, which I competed in powerlifting and bench press. I was doing a squat workout by myself. I hurt my back, and I knew within a couple of days I had something called saddle numbness. You never want to experience this. This is where you don't feel anything from your belly button to the crack of your butt, anything between there. So it's like the most horrible thoughts are going through your mind when you have that. That was on a Saturday that I realized I'm totally numb.
Yeah.
So I called some people that I knew who were doctors, and I got an appointment for Monday morning at 7 a.m., got fitted in. I was having surgery on my back at 8 a.m. To fix what had gone on. And then, like an idiot, I competed again in a powerlifting meet like 3 weeks later. I won the meet, but I also really hurt my back again.
You just lost your back.
Yeah, and so then I had another surgery. And then I said, look, I don't want to do this anymore, powerlifting, and I don't want to have people cutting in my back, cutting into my body. So what's another thing I can do? And the surgeon said, you're going to probably need a third surgery. I said, no, that's good for you, but not for me. What can we try?
Bad patient.
Right, yeah, non-compliant, exactly. The story continues. And he said, I recommend he sarcastically said you can try yoga, but let's go ahead and schedule the third surgery because that's not going to work. You're going to need it, and you're going to be begging me for it, so let's schedule it. But if you want to go try something like yoga, go ahead. So then I looked up the schedule and how I saw there's I don't remember what it used to be called, the class. But the class, when I was in the room, I was the only person under 80 and not pregnant. I remember that. So I thought, okay, maybe I'm in the right. This will be gentle enough for me. I felt totally comfortable, I swear. Like, I'm in the right room. Everyone's pregnant or over 80. I'm good.
That's it.
And then I asked you if I'm in the right... if this is the right, I said, I just had surgery on my back. I think I said like 3 weeks ago. I know exactly what you said. You said, oh yeah, brother, you're in the right place. That was it. And so then yoga was the next thing. And that's how it unfolded.
It's the Punish Minute.
And taking out the trash and all the other things. You did so many things today. I appreciate you. I cannot wait to go and help you make your bed. Make your bed for you. You deserve some support for all the things you've done. I really, really love you. See, Ginger does too. She has her butt on you because she loves you, because you are so amazing. And I'm so sorry how bad you played in basketball today, and that your old mother beat you so badly. And that I just kept scoring on you, scoring and scoring and scoring on you. Thanks for being such a great loser.
Terrible pie.
That tasted like chalk, so very chalky you had to spit it out into the trash. And then you laughed because it was instead of a pie, it was blueberry soup and some chalky crust. And you ate it up like it was delicious, and then you said, "Whoa, that's bad."
Oh, I got a good one. I was at the club the other day, and somebody left a can of Axe spray out, and that smelly. Yeah. And I shot it in my mouth, and then the next person I spoke to said I was speaking with an accent.
What kind of accent?
Did you know dogs can't perform MRIs,
I did not know that.
but cats can? I saw he's a Latino magician the other day, and he said,
Risky lead in, but okay.
right? Okay, so I just
Not the
said,
80s.
I'm gonna disappear without a trace. It's like, okay, great. So he goes, uno, dos, and poof, he was gone. Like that?
That's awesome, yeah.
Is that not bad?
It's super good.
Okay.
One more?
I dated a vegan, talks about vegetables all the time, and I literally said to her, I said, can you speak one sentence without a vegetable in it? And she said, not necessarily.
So good. So good.
You're all alone, it's all for naught, you're gonna die soon, relatively. The cosmos doesn't give a fuck about you, God is dead, unfortunately. There's no escape, your life is getting worse, eventually your knees will hurt like a purse.
Leather.
And then you'll go to sleep and never wake up, and everyone who hated you will see you in a hearse.
What?
Good night.
At some point, you're like, hey, I want to get a PhD in education.
Psychology.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, while I'm doing this, I'll go ahead and take a 5-month teacher training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just be so you educate yourself, which to me also occurs as a collector. I am systematically shining light in the dark places to collect as much space for me to play intellectually, mentally as I can, so that the boundaries of my ignorance recede and the
Nicely said.
playground of my intellectual dominance
Okay, I love that too.
expand. I just think that's incredibly interesting because you showed up to every session. You always had questions,
Which is very unique.
Well, it's one of the things I always guarantee people is that, because it was one of the agreements, you come to every class with questions. And I also promised that you're not going to be able to do it. And it's been true for every single person, but it may always like one person who was always like, I'm going to show Andrew. And then he shows him questions. And you were that guy for that course while you're doing something that would have taken most people out in terms of just workload. And you're running your businesses, you have kids and a family. Somebody's got to call the plumber. You got to do the research to find this new Cadillac, and you're in 2 courses.
That's about it. That's good. That's a great description.
Well, so it's like, that's what's so impressive to me when people talk about integrity or whatever, but like there are people that are unemployed and the teacher training still overwhelms them in terms of their schedule. Like, I just can't make it tonight. Mm-hmm. And yet I did not know you were finishing up your PhD until like the last 2 weeks of the course, which is another reason why I think you sort of secrecy is, or selective storytelling, or like something going on with like image control.
Yeah, that is image control.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Part of my story is, I am part of my, I guess, I don't know why I keep saying, going back to the identity, but who I am as a person. I had some traumatic experiences as a child, which, by the way, everyone does in some level. It's all relative, about looking bad. So part of my mechanism for not looking bad or looking good, the other side of that, is to control I allow people to see or know.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that about social media. It's like the best caption I ever saw on someone's Instagram was, "Welcome to my fake life." And I love that because that's really what it is. You don't really know.
Yeah. Well, what's so funny, interesting, curious, stimulating, is that seems true about you, and now it's confirmed. Except I don't think I know anyone else who posts as much as you do on Instagram or Facebook. Like, you are so consistent.
I go through phases, and right now I'm very consistent because I know you have to be.
Yeah.
To me, if you watch Netflix series or you watch reality TV or you do Sudoku or something, to me, posting is the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just mindless, and you gotta know what you're doing. It's entertaining.
Yeah.
And you get a little dopamine bump. So I'm getting all the things everyone else is getting. I don't watch Netflix series. I don't like the commitment.
Right. You can't watch the first one. That's the.
I have a couple. I was like, you know what? I'm not committing to this.
Okay.
I'm backing away right now.
Yeah.
Would you have heard the sound? Beep, beep, beep.
As you.
Reversing? Oh yeah. Yeah.
She's saying your butt is big.
Yeah.
Sorry.
True. Not as big as his, but it's big.
It worked perfectly into the last series that we watched, but my policy is I watch the last episode
First?
Oh,
I would never do that.
100%.
That's a spoiler. No way.
Well, but this is the thing. You've read a book twice before?
Yeah.
Right? A novel.
Many. Yeah.
It's always better the second time because knowing how it ends makes you appreciate how the author got you there.
Yeah, but you can. Okay, sorry. You'll edit this out later. That's like what?
You're flabbergasted.
No, that's horrible. That's like watching The Sixth Sense backwards or knowing that he's dead. That would totally ruin.
She hasn't seen that. Nice.
Oh, shikes. or The Village or any M. Night Shyamalan movie to know the ending.
But not all stories are so contingent on that. And when you watch The Village or The Sixth Sense twice, it's so much more poignant. And what makes it more poignant?
It's because right?
100%. And to me, that's the poetry. That is part of the poem that would be written about all of us. We all know we're going to die. We all know the ending. We sort of get to reminisce on our life, looking how we got here. But it's just nice knowing. Anyway, the reason I look at the end, one, I can see all the main characters that died. Because if they're not in the last season, like, I don't have to get attached to that guy because he's totally going to die at some point in these 9 seasons. And if the ending sucked, like, I'd get to skip the whole, or like I'll watch the first episode of the last season rather than watch the first episode, because the first episode of the first season is gonna hook you,
yeah,
for sure. Right. But that doesn't tell you anything about.
That's their best. Yeah, you're right. That is like they're trying their best on that episode.
All the nice characters are on the first episode. Look at the first episode of the 9th season, and that's actually how I watched Game of Thrones, and it solved a lot of problems with Games of Thrones.
Well, while you're watching Game of Thrones, I'm posting on Instagram.
100%. So
I'm figuring out the hashtags that will get me, the most activity.
Well, okay, so that's why I thought about sort of the setup with the sound and the stuff that I do with your businesses. Especially with advertising. You shared this before in a meeting we had where Jeffrey Bezos has the final word on all these things, particularly around advertising or certain aspects of the business. His hand is always still there, even though I'm successful when I don't have to clean my bathroom. Except there are some things in business that you actually need to stay a little dirty and see. And to me, when I think about that, you have every reason not to do it, but you still do it.
Yeah, well, part of it's probably a little OCD or a little control that you have to balance, right? Not overcorrect.
Right.
It's hard to delegate things that you've built, because if you built it and you love it, and we all think if we built it that we're better and smarter than anyone else who tries to do it. And that might even be true, but that doesn't mean it won't be better with someone else doing it.
Right.
And it's a constant battle for me, for sure. And I'm not alone in this. I'm not one of those people. I have some friends who, they've done this great job. They'll build a small company and then hire someone and then step away, and the company grows and they barely participate and the company's like growing. I don't know if they got lucky or if that's just the way they're wired, but I'm just not wired that way.
Right. It is true that no one will care about it as much as you. That's true.
I think they won't care about it the same way as I do. They may care about it. Warren Buffett said, you only want to hire someone who's thinking about your company when they're shaving in the morning. And are they thinking about it at home versus off the clock?
Yeah, that's...
Or when they're on the clock.
That is lucky. For me, I just know that it's very unlikely I'm going to find anyone who knows they can't just walk away from this and it's fine. Like, we can't walk away from the business in the same way.
Right,
and
true.
So there is a little bit more survival at stake.
But that also makes bad decision making.
Sure.
Because, when you're gambling, as an example, if you're gambling or playing poker, when you are down to your last chips, you make less educated, your decision making is compromised. Versus if you had endless money or playing with fake money,
right?
Matchsticks, as they sometimes say, you're a better poker player because the stakes are different and you make more informed decisions. That's definitely true, I think, in business when you're not in survival mode. In fact, I'm always worried. Actually, in one of my businesses, I'm very worried in our debt business when someone's desperate because I question their ability to make clear decisions.
Right. We met at the Estonian, or at least we got to know each other at the Estonian. There's a certain kind of person that is a member there. You have a certain level of success, and you care about either networking or health. It's
Right.
social, but there's like some health aspect to it. So you tend to see people who, and I see a lot of people who at all ages prioritize their health and still work the whatever ungodly hours. How would you describe your relationship with health and success? Has it made it, as you've gotten more successful, has it made it easier, harder?
I think it's a priority for me based on my actions. And
how many nights do you still go to the gym at night?
I've been doing primarily calisthenics, which I can do indoor, outdoor. COVID helped usher in calisthenics for me.
Right.
I probably train 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And one of those days is a yoga better day, actually. That is literally what it says on my calendar. It's a yoga better practice, one of those days, and then the others are just something calisthenics related. And I do it 5 or 6 days a week. The thing you're talking about with time, and this contradiction sometimes where people feel like they're busier when they're more successful. I just read there's an amazing HBR, Harvard Business Review article series called Time Affluence. And I highly recommend it and the author, she describes something called commodity bias. And commodity bias is, when it relates to time, is that the more successful you become, the more your time becomes worth, and the more something's worth and the more scarce it is, the more valuable it becomes. And so there is this thing where people who are wealthier feel like their time is worth more, and maybe by the hour it is worth if they were working. But part of that's also emotionally or psychologically inflated because they feel like their time is worth more, so it must be more scarce. But the truth is we all have the same 24 hours.
Right.
And it's just really what we're choosing to do with it. I'm not balancing sleep as well as I probably should. I prioritize other things over sleeping. But sleep is really important. I've heard
that too, yeah. Other than just catching up, the last actual question I have that's sort of interesting is, you're also one of the people that we turn to for ideas. You gave us that idea because you would talk to us after class. Like, dude, I got these ideas. I was like, okay, let's talk. Tell me your ideas. And there'd always be great ideas.
Thank you. I'm sure not all of them, but they're ideas. They're webs.
Yeah, they're very helpful.
You're thinking about us while washing your hands, right? So, your time is valuable, right? And so you're giving us some of that precious resource cognitively, and then you're excited to share it. And then, once a year or so, we give you a call. It's like, hey, man, can we buy you coffee and pick your brain because we have some issue? And there is your expertise and your success everywhere else, but there's also just that you're a smart human being who is driven, right? You have the push and the squeeze. There's something under your feet keeping you going. And you're also super caring. You don't offer your time for free to just anybody, and that we're part of that sort of community that we do not take lightly, but we also don't miss it. Like, okay, we're definitely going to take advantage of like this human being who cares. The question that I have written here is, what is your idea execution ratio? Idea to execution, like how many ideas versus, because I try to come up with, 100 plus business ideas a year of totally different things that we could do. Mm-hmm. I do basically none of them every year.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think ideas are amazing. I describe them as bubbles, and you don't want to pop them. Just let them float in there. They'll dissolve, or they'll become something else. But if you pop them, you can pop them too early, and you don't know what you would have had, right? Mm-hmm. Ideas are important, but nothing happens without action. So that's the implementation side. Not every idea, I think, is meant to be acted upon. I think if you acted on every idea, you'd get nowhere. I think focus is really critical to success. even in health, actually, what are you going to focus on? I just said I'm not going to focus on sleep right now. But when I promise you, when I do focus on sleep, I will be sleeping more than I sleep right now. And I think, or more consistently for sure, I should say. But I think focus is important, and ideas pop up that will try to derail you, and they sound good. And the grass is always greener. And we always think the other guy or other gal it's easier for them. But the truth is, it's just hard to be successful, or it's hard to be good at yoga if you're not already good, or hard to be good at calisthenics, or hard to be a runner. But focusing on running and getting really good at running, I think focus matters. I think the ideas are meant to provide you information, and then where you go with them, you have to be very careful, because you can easily derail yourself off of what's the bigger picture.
For sure.
That being said, you never know the next idea that could be the brilliant idea. So
right.
For me, because I get so enthusiastic and passionate about ideas, I mean, if I come up with an idea in the evening, I'm a late night kind of person. So if I come up with an idea in the evening, I will work out the whole idea. And the next morning, I will look at what I wrote and I'm a freaking idiot. This will never work.
Yes. Your idea is next to you in bed. And you're like, oh, I went to sleep with that thing?
Yes,
Oh, no.
Right, exactly. I'll be right back.
Where are you going? Never to return.
Right. I'll call you. But, those ideas, working through them like that, I love working through an idea all the way, because then you are a little bit more clear. Is this going to become something or not become something? But I would overemphasize focus, it's really valuable.
I'm hearing you say focus, and by focus, I'm also hearing in there that, would you say that your focus is what you're committed to, like the overarching?
Commitment, I mean, definitely like personal core values for sure. Reminding, driving by those or having those as buoys or guideposts, I think is really important. But I mean, there's nothing more common than an entrepreneur or a business owner, here's a new idea, and will change their whole company over a new idea. Or they meet with a marketing person, actually, and they'll change their whole marketing strategy or their whole image of their company because they heard an idea or read an idea or heard a podcast. Or if you're hearing this, my advice is stay focused. Don't change.
Right.
It takes time. I describe it as baking a cake. This is a really good metaphor. It works. It's pretty universal, so you can keep it for pretty much anything. Have you ever had cake at a wedding? Yes?
Yes.
Have you ever had a brownie at a wedding? This is where you say no, because you
Yes.
probably haven't. Okay. You don't have, you may have had a brownie at a birthday, but they don't usually bring out candles unless you're at a restaurant or something in a brownie. They usually bring them out in a cake and celebrate big events, anniversaries and things on a cake, and big, wedding cakes. The reason for that is it takes a long time to make a cake, relatively to baking, right? But it takes no time. In fact, if you use a microwave, it takes no time to make a brownie at all. And the only difference between a brownie and a cake is really just time. And you being focused on what you want to have that cake is sticking to the knitting, if you will, or sticking to what you're trying to accomplish and not checking on it every few minutes. Because if you keep opening the oven to check, am I doing it?
Right.
Your brownie, your batter never becomes a cake. It never rises. It never goes up. It just becomes a brownie. And we don't have brownies at weddings. So to me, it does take time. And we're definitely in an instant gratification that's overused, but it's so true. We don't even recognize it anymore. We're old enough to know that kind of changed in our lifetime, and it's never going back for sure. But it's so obvious, and everyone's trying to accommodate us with that. By the way, they're not trying to help us.
Yeah.
They're just giving you more instant gratification everywhere. Speaking of social media, but I think in business and in investing and in health, your well-being. Meditating for a minute is great, better than not meditating. Meditating for 10 minutes is even better. And meditating one day out of a month is good, but meditating every day is even better. I think focus and sticking with it we're too easily derailed.
Yeah.
And I think that is what I meant by focus, staying with what you wanted, because it does take time.
Yeah.
For me, it occurs, it feels like I let the manic take me when it takes me. Like I enjoy having the good idea and being seduced by a vision. It's very very nice. But the way I would describe it is the inverse of focus. We design procrastination into our business. And so we just make everything just take longer, because with ideas, if I'm pissed that it doesn't exist in a year, then I do it. Like if it's been a burr in my mind as I'm focusing and working on all these other things. If this idea keeps coming back, teacher training, video website, like these are things that made me upset that they weren't existent, but I gave them lots of time because it's like, okay, I don't just have 100,000 to throw on this new business. In general, I am kind of slow to educate myself. And so every extra year I give myself to work on a business, I'm much smarter. It's like, I'm glad I didn't do this stuff 20 years ago.
That was my point about it, just getting the ideas, and they provide a foundation for future ideas. Even if the idea you thought was amazing one night and next morning you realized you were being pretty silly, the next time something like that comes up, you have such a better filter for hearing that idea and what good it might be versus bad. And we all know that if we had a job, we would know that, but it is different when you have stakes on the line in your own business, or it's just, we have so much more floating around in our minds and our ego about trying to make that business successful because it's important to us. And a lot of, going back to what we were saying earlier, just about different types of business owners or investors or who can be hands-off and not touch everything, like Jeff Bezos. The thing you're referencing, I think, is the fact that he still edits the site. Any change to Amazon.com above the fold when you first log on, it has to be approved by him still personally today. Right. And he still wants to be involved in that decision. And that's wonderful. I think the other challenge with people in business like that, not to say that he's amazing, or what he's done is amazing, I should say. I don't know about him personally, but what he's done is amazing, is people who create their identity around their business. Yeah. And I used to deal with that. I mean, I have my logo tattooed on my arm right this second, right? It's going to be there for a while. So it's where you get your identity attached to your company and that you are that. And there's a special thing that happens actually when you bifurcate them or compartmentalize them. Really, like this could or couldn't work out, but that's not me. And almost like you're a consultant. I've found the best results for me and the reason why I have great ideas for you is because I'm acting like a consultant or a friend giving advice. Right. There's that phrase, doctor, heal thyself. If I have a problem, it's difficult to solve, but if you have a problem, I have great advice.
You got it.
To try to do that to yourself by separating yourself from your identity from your company is really something special. So, and it takes a skill, but once you get it, you get it.
For sure. We're recording a series on running a business as a couple.
Couple of what? Just kidding.
Couple of hotties.
Couple big booties.
Couple big booties. It occurs as sort of my superpower that I can just walk away from anything. And I think being divorced really helped me with that because I did not want to get divorced and I survived. It's like, okay, there's basically nothing can be worse than that period of my life. Like I can stop teaching yoga. I can go be a dentist or whatever. That bifurcation has to be there because the business isn't our relationship. And we have to talk business all the time, except we can just totally close. We don't need a studio. We don't need we don't need any of this to be happy. What matters is much more important to me than the business is the marriage. But that is the reason why most marriages and businesses fail is that inability to differentiate. I do not identify even as a yoga teacher, let alone as the yoga better guy. It's just a thing I created and I can create the next thing. Super important skill. What occurs to me is like you're a power lifter. Okay, if I try to pick up 400 pounds off the ground, I've never lifted weights before, nothing happens. Yeah, we know that. But if you put scales under the two sides of the weights on the barbell, and you take some scrawny guy who's not going to pick up 400 pounds, and he tries to lift it, and I ask my class, what will happen to the scales? Some people say nothing, but that's not true at all. The weight on the scales goes down. Mm-hmm. Even though you haven't crossed the threshold of being able to pick up 400, you're picking up 50 or 100. That weight's going through your skeleton and making you stronger. You just don't get the satisfaction of winning the game called picking up the 400-pound weight. I don't recommend that as like a strengthening strategy, but it'll totally make you stronger. Yeah. Try to pick up 400 pounds every day, whether you ever lift it or not. As long as you have good form and you don't ruin your spine, you'll get stronger. You're somebody who, you run multiple businesses, you have a family, you're always educating yourself, you're full of ideas and looking at the next thing, and you still work out 5 days a week. That, to be the kind of person who has the skill to show up that much, you had to work on that. Took some commitments, and then there had to be like neural pathway programming, and then you had to get the groove, and now to not do it feels weird.
Right, exactly. It's habitualized.
And to me, listening to you work on ideas is the same. Can you turn off your idea brain?
Probably not, and which is a problem, you know. I have to use other substances to help me do that, actually.
The tequila is available, though, man.
Tequila or others to help me do that, to help calm me a little bit, because
Sure.
I am so intense sometimes, or I can't turn it off. I can't stop it from happening. But it's not like, look, it's not like endlessly there's a loop going. I rarely have days where it's like I can't turn it off, honestly. But just to relax is
Right.
a little bit different. But I do think that it is something that you habitualize, thinking of the ideas and not acting on the wrong ones, and knowing which ones to write on, or creating a decision-making criteria for which ideas you do. I'm not normally that cognitive or that cerebral, but when the stakes are high, you have to think through, like, when I have an idea, when am I going to execute on the ideas, and when am I not? When is that just a good idea? And what kind of check marks do I have to check off to say, this is a good one, I really should do this? Like you said, will I be mad in a year if I didn't do that kind of thing? I think that's important. I think the thing about taking care of your health is that I do recognize, even though I'm not old enough yet to totally be afraid of my mortality, I'm getting there. I'm not there yet. Definitely losing both my parents in the last 5 years definitely helped with that. But I think part of taking care of yourself, it occurs to me as obvious, I guess, that if you don't take care of yourself, everything else doesn't matter. You can have money and time, all of it in the world, but if you don't have your health, there's really
Right.
no point to it. So I think I recognized that when I was younger, and have just, maybe when I was in the hospital, like I said,
Right.
that if I don't take care of myself, this is all, what's the point of working hard to build a company? There's just no point. You're actually, to me, I always envy people who are in the healthcare space, or health and fitness space, or healthcare, but particularly health and fitness, because you're building a business that also involves your health. So
Right.
you get a twofer.
For sure.
Which is exciting. But I'm not in that. I don't have that ability. But I think it's all about habitualizing the routine. And like you said, I feel incomplete, or something's off if I don't do my routine. Something that's occurring to me that ties a lot of what we talked about together, about the business owner, about working hard versus efficient, to bring you back to like an hour ago or something. That conversation, and the conversation with Jeff Bezos, and just, what to be, what business to walk away from or not, and kind of bifurcating yourself. This author, this academician named Richard Florida, he wrote this book called Who's Your City? And in the book he describes, he's a researcher, and
Who's your, like, the basketball player, or who is your
city?
Got it.
Who is your city? And it's an academic, highbrow kind of book, but one of the things that he did research on is the 3 most important factors in the quality of your life. And this relates to your marriage, or your key relationships, walking away from your business, and working hard. All of this tied together in these 3 things. The quality of your life can be summed up in 3 decisions you make: what you do, who you do it with, and where you do it. And those 3 things are so critical to your life. I mean, he's done some meta-analysis on the quality of life for people, and the differences in those decisions. And the one, by the way, total aside, you can edit this out later if you want, but the one that people take the most for granted, which one do you think? Who you do,
Where?
Who you do. Not who you do. What you do, okay, where?
Yeah.
People absolutely take for granted where.
Have you heard any of the podcasts yet?
No.
So, interviewed.
I can't post on social media and listen to podcasts, Andrew.
You got to choose. I agree.
You can play in the background.
To me, podcasts are driving.
Yes, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, wash the dishes, wash your toes.
Okay, this was great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Easy?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely painless. Thank you.
It's plain to see And we all know that there is no poetry. There's only poet do. So without further ado, let's get to it and get to the poet do doing. By the way, I'm about to read a poem. Occasionally, I ask my wife to just stand there while I look. I know she is more than her body. I know that I can't see the qualities that addict me to this woman. But if a form could embody its host's qualities, this woman gets more beautiful every single time I look at her. I'm trying to take it in, irrationally trying to hold on to what it is like to see what keys so deeply into my brain. What is beautiful? What is perfect? What is right? I'm seeing it and floating in the ecstasy of the failure of being able to take it in really. I'm obviously a romantic of the sentimental sort. I imagine myself on my deathbed, older, surrounded by those few who love me. I'm telling stories, the stories I love, of all the magical beauty I've lost and all the moments gone forever. And I'm making myself and everyone around me terribly sad, heavy with the emotion of the past, overwhelmed with my impending passing. Isn't that rude? What an asshole. I love it. I've long since given in, not just giving in, but cultivating my particularly virulent strand of sentimentality, which I would not trade for anything. I'm not attached. Rather, I love the pain of remembering what is lost, seeing what I will lose, and the sweetness of letting today's beauty in fully. Mid-game, my wife moans in pain, explaining that her written answer soon to be revealed is really quite bad. As the answers are read, we all begin to laugh, but hers is different. The question, who is Alvin Strait? As my son begins to read hers, he makes it to the first three words, the First Lady. The room erupts in the joy of her assessment being spot on. He can't get through reading it without the giggles. A minute passes. We have the honest belief that the joke has been said and enjoyed, but wait, the sentence isn't over. He finally continues, with each word our world breaks down. The expectations we have of the way sentences are supposed to go, and the deep fulfillment of some need to know that it can get worse. The First Lady to discover a paddle on her ice cream sandwich. That is more or less the end of the game. My eyes are on my wife. She looks like she's going to explode when she laughs hard. Tears streaming, abs working hard. The hard laughter of explosive happiness and embarrassment, and I want that image forever. All of them. My body sings for them, my most cherished possessions. These images of my life, my babies, my family, but deepest of all, the woman that chose me. My love, can you just stand there for me? Balderdash by me, Andrew Dugas. Podcast is produced by Sarah Bellum here in Houston, Texas. For everything me and Yoga Better, from thousands of videos to trainings to more podcasts, visit yogabetter.com. And of course, big love, keep practicing, keep thinking.
When you go through customs at Puerto Rico, they give you this USDA inspection sticker on your luggage. I was like, okay, that's too cool. I got to keep that. I'm keeping that. Yeah, anyway.
You're approved beef, man. That's
yeah,
great.
Exactly. Did you see that? That's what it says, actually. Did you know that?
I did not see that, yeah.
No, it says USDA approved meat. That's why I kept it. I was like, okay, this is too good.